Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today I'm talking with Alex Levy. He is the Artistic Director for First Stage Theater in Tysons. Thanks so much for being here, Alex.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So I have to confess that I've never actually been to a First Stage Theater production.
Well, let's fix that.
I know, right? Because I really didn't know the story. I mean, I kind of had heard people talk about it, but it wasn't until your publicity person reached out and said, you need to do a show about First Stage, that I really sort of drilled down to figure out, the theater's been here for 12 years. Yeah. How did I miss it?
It sure has. Well, one of the reasons is that you can drive right past us and not see us. One of the things about First Stage, we are in our 12th year, and we're in the top level of an industrial strip mall out there in Tysons by the Spring Hill Metro. And it's one of those spaces that you drive by and ignore when you look at it from the outside. But there's this magical thing that happens when you cross the threshold of the place. It's really a gorgeous little black box theater that is capable of doing large-scale musicals and really intimate little dramas. That little corner of the universe has become a really vibrant arts hub for our community.
So you came out to the suburbs, not from the suburbs, 5 years ago,
That's
2014?
Right. Yeah.
So what made you pluck Tysons
Yeah.
after Chicago and Los Angeles and the places where you've been?
Yeah, I was splitting my time between Los Angeles and New York when the opportunity came to come and take over First Stage. And one of the things that happened to me is what happens to so many people. I did cross that threshold, and I did fall in love with the space and the work and the people who are inhabiting it, both as artists and as our audience members. So I fell in love with the vibe of the place right away. But it's also, the DC theater community is second to none. It's a really exciting place to be right now. And so we have this incredibly rich talent pool that we can draw from. And then Tysons is in such change. And so you have this community that is sort of finding its identity for the future. And they've had a lot of conversations about transportation and school and infrastructure and things that are really important. But they're just now starting to have conversations about quality of life and culture and what it means to be a place and what it means to build a community. And it's rare to have an opportunity to come into a place that is at the beginning of a high-level conversation like that.
It's definitely in transition. I remember back in the day when Tysons meant the mall,
Sure.
Tysons Corner Mall. And then there were business buildings, like then you worked in Tysons. So you shopped in Tysons, you worked in Tysons.
That's right.
Then they did mixed-use development. They added a metro station. People live there now. People didn't live there before. So now it's this real community, but it's got an emerging sense of identity.
It sure does. I mean, if you drive around Tysons right now, the thing that you'll see is a crane on every corner, and what they're building are large high-rise buildings, and unlike in the past, those high-rise buildings aren't office parks, they're residential towers.
Yes.
And so people are moving in droves there, and a diverse set of people are moving in. We're seeing families, we're seeing younger people, we're seeing people that are discovering our community and becoming an integral part of our community. Some of them have worked out there for a long time. Some of them are new. You know, we live in a place where people move here all the time. Yeah, and so some of them are discovering Tysons, and it's exciting to be a part of that, to be part of a community that is forming around us. Literally, since I've been there, if you draw a circle around the couple blocks around the theater, you will see 3, 4 new 20, 30-story residential apartment buildings, and they're filling up. And as soon as one fills up, they start on the next one. So it's exciting to see all of the things that are happening in Tysons.
So how does that inform, as an artistic director, how does that inform how you decide to pursue the kinds of things that you produce?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that happened when I took the job is I did an interview with the Washington Post, and might as well say who it was. And one of the questions they asked me was, how can you really program art out in a place like Tysons? You know, that in a suburb that's not a border suburb, really, don't you have to play it safe? And I said, I don't think so. I think the craving for rich, complex art is as strong in a community like Tysons or Fairfax County as it is in the center of a place like Washington, D.C. or New York or Los Angeles. I didn't know that. I suspected that. And in the 5 years I've been here, it's been absolutely true that we, the programming that you see at First Stage is as rich and vibrant and daring at times as theater anywhere in the country. And that's something that I think didn't exist before we were there. It's something I think a lot of people didn't believe could thrive in a place like Tysons. But in fact, what we have is an incredibly diverse community that has a range of wants and needs, and we try to program a range of wants and needs. So, and shows are very different. We do musicals, we do comedies, we do dramas, we do new works, we do sort of modern classics. But there is an audience for all of that in our community, and I don't think people believed that before it was there.
I agree with you. In fact, I can understand the post saying, so who's your audience?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are these people?
Absolutely. I think there's a belief that the people who are savvy, the people who are interested in arts, the people who are interested in culture, well, they're going to live in downtown D.C. and they're not going to live out in Tysons. But nothing could be further from the truth. I think anywhere you go, one of the things that make us human is a craving for storytelling, a craving for art, a craving for a place to come together and have conversation and to share in something. And that we sort of put blinders on and assume, oh, that only lives in an urban center. But I think, in fact, we've seen that's not true. It exists everywhere. But
there's also a business model to this, too. And I bring this up because the Washington Opera has tried to do more modern things. Like they did a show on The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. And Tom and I, my husband and I, went to see it. And we thought it was just marvelous, just so compelling and wonderful. And the theater was half empty.
Sure.
So clearly their patrons prefer Wagner.
Yeah.
You know, and so and even when I was in community theater, one of the things that we always looked at was, are we going to upset the blue hairs? People probably don't even know what blue hair means anymore. But the point is that they were our season ticket holders,
sure,
right? They
sure.
were season ticket holders. So if you did anything too avant-garde, was it going to upset the people who basically funded us?
Yeah.
So from your business model perspective, does that factor in what you choose?
That's a real conversation, of course, and it comes up. And you know, one of the things that is true of our place is not every show is for every person. That's the nature of art. We try to make sure that over the course of the season, a couple times over the course of the season, that we're trying to program to as many different kinds of people as possible. Some of them like everything we do and subscribe and are there for every show. Some of them pick and choose, and that's okay too. But what we want to do is try to make sure that we're reaching the whole community. You know, it is a true thing. I think we all understand, especially now, we're so taxed with time, we're so taxed with money, that when we on a Friday night decide that I'm going to put $40 down, and even more importantly, 2 hours of my life down, of that very little bit of time I have. If you're somebody like me, you're also paying a babysitter
right.
at the same time. It's scary to put those resources towards something you don't know, right? And so a known show, a safe quantity, of course, makes people feel a little less reluctant to do that. But I think those who've started to get used to it find that the real reward can come from taking a risk on something you don't know. And that the payoff of that, of putting yourself in a place where you can discover something new is actually a really exciting way to come into a theater and into a piece of art. Now, we try to help people along so they're not totally blind into what they're walking into, but it's always a conversation of what is a known piece where I can feel safe and I know what I'm doing with those 2 hours versus what is an unknown piece. Which may have a little more risk, but I think it has a higher reward a lot of the time.
So airness probably fits into the latter category, and that's opening your season December 5th?
It is. So Airness is coming up now, and it is a great example of that, right? It's a show by playwright Chelsea Marcantel, who's had a really a rising star in the theater community, but is not a household name by any means. And it's about competitive air guitar competition, which is something I didn't even know existed before
so
the show.
Premise, when I read about the show, I'm like, what an amazing, air guitar competition. Yeah. The premise of the play is fascinating.
It's fascinating, and who is this? Who are these people who do it? It's a fascinating world. It's such a delightful and fun world. For those who don't know, these are people who are rock stars at 60 seconds at a time without the guitar, right?
Right.
And we went down after we decided we were going to do the show, and we went to the DC qualifier of down on the wharf. and it is the most fun that you'll have. It is this sort of pure form of entertainment where it is just about the thrill of doing it, and it is so participatory. You know, they're rock stars because we believe in it in that moment, right? And it is about this weird little enclave of people who have sort of found their tribe in doing this, and it's such a sweet show. It's such a sort of uplifting show in a time of a lot of cynicism in our world.
So true.
These are people who are doing it. I mean, there's no money in air guitar, right? There's no fame that comes out. They do it because of the joy and because of the community that it has. And when you walk into the theater and experience the show, you will be swept away with that spirit and that energy.
Well, I'm glad to know that you're doing things that are surprising. You know, surprising and delighting people is one of the great payoffs in the arts. Is to do the unexpected. You know, I know that you're also because Hadestown leaps to mind. It's one of those unexpected shows that people have seen. I have not seen it yet. That people have seen it as just like it's such an amazing show. And again, an unusual premise. But now your theater, first stage, is actually you do things where you introduce people to things like Hadestown. Yeah,
I mean, one of the really wonderful things that I walked into and that our community is supported on is that they trust us, and they don't often know much about the show before they come to see it, but they know about First Stage, and they, you know, we've been really honored to win a bunch of awards and get our name out there in the last few years. And so they want to come to us not to see something they've already seen, but to discover something new very often. And they trust us to do that at a high level. That's as an artistic director, you can't ask for more, because that's what you really want to be able to do, is to introduce new works and new voices, to expose new ideas to your community, and to be able, as you say, to surprise and delight and get a conversation started. And we've had a community that's really embraced us that way. And as you say, I think a lot of people believe that couldn't happen out in our community, but it's alive and well.
I agree with you. And I think, too, that we underestimate people's capacity to take a risk and, again, to find their tribe. You know, when you were talking about the air guitar, but people in the arts also are looking for people who value the same things they do. And not everybody's flavor of the arts is the same. So, you know, where I love to go to New York and see Broadway shows that I'm familiar with, right? Bernadette Peters and Hello Dolly. I sat in the front, I know you loved every minute of it. But I love going to things like The Choir Boy, which is something brand new. And it's going into uncharted territory. And so we're going to go to a break, Alex, but when we get back, I do want you to talk about your season. I want you to talk about your collaborations with other area theaters. So join us after the break with Alex Levy.
So I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but you know, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me. There's more than just books at the library.
Il y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Hello. You have a lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today I'm talking with Alex Levy. He is the Artistic Director of First Stage Theater in Tysons. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and talk to us about something many of our viewers have probably never heard of, and that is your wonderful theater.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, absolutely.
And so what distinguishes your theater, too, from maybe local theater that people are community theater, is that this is a professional theater.
Yeah, I think that's a really key distinction, because when we started, there wasn't professional theater in our region, and so, but that didn't mean there was no theater. There were a lot of people who were exposed to theater, who got to enjoy theater at the community level. But it is a different thing to see people who do this at a high level, who this is what their careers are, their jobs are, being able to bring really high quality world-class theater to your community. And it does mean something to be able to come together with your neighbors in your community and have these experiences and conversations, as opposed to what used to have to happen, which is you had to get on the Beltway and drive out of your community, experience in somebody else's community, and then go home and be by yourself. Our theater is a place where people or neighbors find each other in the lobby, where the conversation goes beyond our doors into, you know, the schools and the churches and the synagogues and everywhere else that people gather, and they're talking about the art that they experienced there. And that's something that our community needed, and that we're really proud to be able to provide for our community.
I mean, I agree with you. When we do theater locally, for us, that means going to the Kennedy Center or Arena Stage. And oddly enough, we do run into our neighbors at Arena Stage, right? And so to your point, this is where people in Northern Virginia are kind of crossing the border to go see professional theater somewhere else. Yeah. So this is very distinguishing.
It is. I mean, one of the unique things about theater, and one of the reasons I think we've been doing it for the last 3,000 years, is that there are very few places where we, as a community, come into a room and leave everything else outside of that black box and give ourselves over into a story that we share together in that moment, that's being created in that moment between a performer and an audience. And that's a really powerful experience. And it is a powerful experience if you leave your community and go see it somewhere else, but it's an even more powerful thing to share that with your tribe, with your community, with the people who are inhabiting the same sense of place as you are.
But you know, it's still not New York. And so I have to confess, I am very surprised that professional actors can make a living doing theater here.
Yeah. You know, it's one of the wonderful things that's happened to Washington. It's one of the things that brought me out here 5 years ago. There used to be, when I first started in this business, there used to be this perception about Washington that there was great talent here, but there's a ceiling, and eventually you have to leave if you want to have a career at it. In the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, something really exciting has happened here, and it's become one of the country's leading arts sources. And now the rest of the country looks to the DC area, and we have more working professional actors in DC than anywhere other than New York and Chicago in this country. We have over 75 theaters throughout the DC region that are producing everything from classics to new work and large-scale musicals and, you know, storefront basements. We have a rich ecosystem of so much talent here in DC, and so when the opportunity came to be a part of this community, it was really exciting because there were no limits on what we could do, because we had the talent pool to be able to do anything in this town.
You know, and I agree. One of the things that I remember so vividly is seeing Dear Evan Hansen when it was in production at Arena Stage. So we were in the previews. In fact, it hadn't even opened to local audiences, and we were in a preview audience before it ever went and became this enormously successful Broadway musical.
Yeah, I mean, I would even make the argument that seeing shows in DC, oftentimes you'll see better work than in terms of the acting pool than you will on a large commercial show in New York, because there's not the need to make quite as much money. So in New York, you'll sometimes have stars who are not theater actors, who this is not really where their skill set is, but you know who they are, and so you can sell a ticket at $200 a piece. Here, the only way you get a job here is by being the best talent. And, you know, we don't have a star system here that way, and so you will see in a show like that the best people that Arena Stage can put on stage, not the most sellable people that Arena can put on stage, but the best people, and that's true throughout this region. So oftentimes I'll put our acting up against, you know, New York or any other community in the country.
So do you ever foresee one of your productions like being so breakaway and amazing that it's like, we should take it to Broadway?
You know, we get that question a lot, and the answer is I don't really care about it. It's not a big deal for me to take our work and give it to another community. We really believe in who our audience is. That said, we're doing some exciting things this season in that we're collaborating with some partners around the DC region. We have Airness, which is coming into our space December 5th, is a co-production with Keegan Theater, which is in DuPont Circle in Washington. And the show after that is called The Royale, which was a co-production with Only Theater out in Montgomery County. And what that does is it combines some resources and creativity, and we don't share that much audience, but what we do is get a chance to spread the word about our work around the entire DC region so that our community grows a little bit and we can bring more people into our community. But it's never been really important for me, for our company, to go on tour or to do work for another community. I'm happy if that happens, that's fine, but we really care about, we see ourselves as a community organization, a professional community organization, and we're really concerned with being a place for the people who live.
Well, 12 years, like you've been in this location for 12 years, and like Tysons has literally changed all around you while you've been creating art.
Yeah. And the conversations that happen in a changing community, what does it mean to build a community? What does it mean to have a sort of city like Tysons? What does it mean to have a new set of a population, a diverse population move in? How do we have those conversations? We don't have very many outlets to have those conversations, but the theater and art is a place where we can come together and have those conversations. We can do it in a complex way, and we can do it in a safe way, and we can do it in an entertaining way. And so it becomes really exciting to produce work in a place like Tysons where there are so many questions that surround us. We live in a world where there are so many questions surrounding us, but you know, you take that on a macro level or you take that on a very micro level, and there's still so many questions to be wrestling with, and that's where great art is born usually.
Oh, I agree. We are in a moment of great upheaval. I'm anxious to hear what historians are going to say about the time we're living through right now.
Sure, and I will say that oftentimes when we have been in great upheaval, or there's been great change or great questions, one of the things that we said about those times is, boy, there's some great art that came out of that time.
Yeah, that is true. So you're kind of trying some new things too, because I noticed on your website that you are taking a group to New York.
Yeah.
Now, is this something new?
It is. It's the first time we're doing it, and we're excited about it. We're gonna go up for 2 days in January. We're going to see a couple shows, but more importantly than seeing that show, it's an opportunity for again, community, for people
Finding
to
your
come together,
people, right?
and be able to get on this bus and go experience this together, but also for them to experience it with theater professionals who can hopefully share some extra insight into a show. You know, what are they actually seeing on the Broadway show? Not just what they're being presented with, but what's the story behind the story? What does that mean? What are the practices and histories that there's and craft that they're seeing beyond that? And so it's going to be a really sort of fun theater lovers weekend to dive in deep to some shows in New York.
But you're sold out, so we should be fair to say.
But you know, we're sold out. So you know, one of the things that tends to happen in theater is when you sell out, you do it again.
And I just think that's great. And I do think that it helps people find in their community and like where you are. It's like, who are the other people who value first stage theater and who want to do something broader, because not everybody goes to New York regularly, so it's nice to do it with a group of people. And
it is. I mean, one of the things that I think is true in our world is that we isolate out more and more. It's harder and harder. We have fewer places where we bridge the gap, where we meet new people, where we really share. And our theater, our lobby is a place where that still happens. And for these groups of people to come together and spend a weekend together and sharing this experience is a way to build the bridges and to bring people together. We don't have that much opportunity for that anymore, and so it's really exciting when we can be a part of that.
So the way to encourage people to come out to your shows, first of all, they have to find you on Spring Hill Road.
That's right.
Like,
it's
look
worth
carefully,
the search.
put your GPS on, because
That's right.
you might drive past it.
Look up, we're on the second floor there.
Right, but for those who really value professional theater, to come out and to also bring people.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I say to people, and I think this is one of the distinguishing things about our company, is that we have this really wonderful intimate space. So you're seeing the same performers that you see at large theaters like Kennedy Center or Arena Stage or wherever else, but you're this far. You're looking into the eyes of them. You're feeling their energy with it. That's a really rare opportunity, and it's one of the things that I think's made First Stage thrive over those years. So it's exciting to be that connected to performance, and I think that's one of the things that distinguishes us.
So talk a little bit, we got a couple minutes left, about what's coming up in this season and how you make choices about what plays you do.
Yeah, it's hard. We try to find a diverse set of voices there, and as I say, our audience often don't know the stories. So what our obligation is to bring them great stories and to do it from as many angles as possible. So you have a show like Airness that is so much fun and is this beautiful movement show that's sort of young and hip rock and roll show in many ways. It's followed up by The Royale, which is a beautiful sort of historical piece that's based on Jack Johnson, the first African-American heavyweight boxing champion in the world. That is this beautiful movement piece. We have a musical called The New Brain coming in after that, and then Waverly Gallery, which is Kenneth Lonergan's piece, which was just on Broadway, is now coming to First Stage. And that one's special to me because one of my first shows at First Stage was a show called Lobby Hero, which is Kenneth Lonergan, who wrote Manchester by the Sea, won the Oscar for that.
Okay.
And the Wall Street Journal came out and to our little black box above the garage there and called it the best regional revival of the year in the country. And so for us to now have Lonergan's work back in our house is a really sort of special thing.
And we can't end the show without talking about the Helen Hayes Awards, and you have received many awards. You've been many nominations, many awards.
We did. Actually, New Brain is a great show to see because we are last year we won the Helen Hayes Award for Best Musical. And that team is coming back to direct and create New Brain, and we are fortunate that we don't, awards you can't control, so it's nice when you win them. But I do think it helps for those who don't know us to know this theater in Tysons is up there with anybody else in the region, and we're really proud of the artists who come together and make the work, whether it wins the awards or not. But we were fortunate this year. Yeah, we won some big ones.
That's right, and it's just this outside verification, validation, credibility. You don't need it, but it's nice to have it because sometimes other people need it.
It is. And one of the things that's been really exciting to me, in part because of where we are and because we're this little company, is that the national media and the national awards have recognized us as well. So not only have we been recognized within our own region, but the whole country is looking at Tysons a little bit. And that's really exciting.
It's very exciting. And thank you so much for being here, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
And at home, this is what you need to know about First Stage Theater in Tysons.